All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the second presentation in the Adulting 101 series. I know that people are likely still getting logging on and getting settled in for the presentation, but I wanted to go ahead and get us started so that we had enough time to cover the presentation and ensure that all of your questions get answered, or at least as many as we can. First of all, my name is Jeremiah Martin, and I work in alumni relations here at Loyola. In my role, I have the opportunity to collaborate with the Graduates of the Last Decade Board, or the Gold Board, and they are sponsoring this series for the Loyola alumni community. This is our second presentation in the Adulting 101 series. There will be a total of 5 presentations, and we hope that you will join us for the remaining ones. And we welcome back anyone who joined us 2 weeks ago for the housing presentation. Joining me tonight are our wonderful panelists, Jordan Gutierrez and Bridget Peterson. Jordan is a 2015 Loyola grad who works at LinkedIn and is helping support organizations to utilize the vast networking tools available through that platform. Bridget is a member of Loyola's career services team, and she has a wealth of experience in career development and public relations. Before I turn this presentation over to our outstanding panelists, I want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. Following Jordan and Bridget's presentation, we will have a Q&A portion of the event. Feel free to submit questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you think of questions during the presentation, go ahead and submit them as you think of them. They won't pop up, they will pop up immediately, and we can get right to them as soon as we transition to that portion of the event. Additionally, this will be recorded, and this presentation will be sent out in the after event email. So you should get that in the next day or so, along with all the slides and the information presented here in the presentation. It is now my great pleasure to turn the floor over to Jordan and Bridget.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. It's great to be here with you guys to be able to do this for you. So Jeremiah said it perfectly. Was a Loyola grad in 2015, and I'm excited to help you guys out with some best practices on LinkedIn. When it comes to LinkedIn, I've been in a variety of different roles here in the 2 years I'm coming up on my anniversary. So I'll highlight a lot of the best practices I actually hear from the clients I support and what they look for potential hires when they're using LinkedIn for any of their open roles, as well as some of the work I actually do on supporting some of my clients at this point in time with branding themselves on LinkedIn. So as we go through some of these slides, I'm going to highlight some of the very important features we're supposed to have on any LinkedIn profile. I'm going to highlight why with some of the metrics as to why that would drive recruiters back to our page, why it's important to include that. Some use cases that you guys can use as well to kind of get your ideas trending in your head, what you can include on your profile. So before we get anything too deep on the slides, one thing I do want to point out with, it is nearly impossible to have a perfect LinkedIn profile. So the last thing I want you guys to think is LinkedIn needs to be perfect. And the amount of work I've done with clients, maybe thousands of profiles, I've never seen a perfect one. So the goal here isn't to be perfect. It's to truly show who you are and create a dynamic digital portfolio of your professional work. So that's the way I want you guys to think about this as we go through some of the slides. So as we move forward, the first slide is going to probably seem pretty straightforward, but that's to include a photo on our profile. There we go. So as you can see on the screen, there's going to be some metrics there of what happens when we include a picture. I can be extremely frank with you on this one with the recruiters I've worked with and how to leverage LinkedIn. I've been told numerous times, and I'm going to say 9 out of 10 times, if there is not a picture on your profile, they completely ignore it. So with these pictures, truly just show who you are. So we want our face to be in there, of course, pretty standard. We want them to know who we are when they're reaching out to us for potential opening on LinkedIn. And that goes for anybody. If it's volunteer service that somebody is interested in and they're reaching out to you, we really just wanted to show them who we are. So that's the end goal here. You guys want a pretty quick, easy tip. If you don't have a professional headshot, by no means does your LinkedIn picture have to be one. I think I'm wearing a crew neck sweater in mine. Keep it as casual as you want. If you want to be professional, go for it. Nobody's going to tell you not to. But quick, easy tip here. If you want to have a picture that stands out from others, very easy tip. Find a white wall have your friend, parents, somebody hold a flashlight up and get the light on your face. It'll look just as good as any professional headshot, I promise you. I've seen people hack it all the time at work. So if you're looking for a way to get a fancy photo without a lot of the hassle behind it, definitely give that a shot. So as we move over to the next slide, this is going to be our summary page. So on the summary, this is essentially going to be our elevator pitch. So when I say elevator pitch, if you guys aren't too familiar with that term, and I know this is something Bridget's going to be covering as well when she comes up to speak, this essentially, if you had 30 to 60 seconds to tell somebody who you are as a professional and the skills you have and the experiences you can leverage, this is where you're going to be able to do it. So this portion right here is not your experience. We have an entire portfolio on LinkedIn where you can highlight your job history. Right here is an example on the screen for you to give you an idea of a pretty solid one. Get creative with these though. So when I say that, if you guys have a professional that you look up to, go to their profile, maybe pull some of the words that they use to leverage that so you can get exposed to the right background or the individuals you want to be working with. So that's a great opportunity there. Definitely leverage things that are already in use. One of the biggest things I tell my clients I support, don't fix it if it's not broke. So if somebody else has a very strong profile in your opinion, use it. By all means, do it. I don't think anybody's going to be upset with you trying to leverage your network and the information at your disposal. So definitely get creative with it. Let your personality flow a little bit in here. Highlight some of those skills that you think are maybe your top 3. And it's a great place to get started on this summary. So now as we move over to our next slide, this is where we're going to highlight skills. Now, the great thing about skills, this is your chance to showcase what you can do. Oftentimes I hear people say, well, man, I don't know what skills I really have. Like, I'm really not that great at everything. It doesn't matter. If you've done it, if you know you can crunch numbers, for instance, put math up there, put calculations, put accounting. You know how to do it. You have the skills to be successful. So if you know you can, definitely highlight it on there. If you're looking for an extremely easy way to maybe get other people's opinions of the skills you have, one of the things we recommend here at LinkedIn is meeting with managers on other teams and finding out what our personal brand is and the skills that they see we have in everyday interactions, even though we've never maybe spoke to those people. A great opportunity for everybody leaving college is essentially meet with professors maybe that you had connections with. Ask them the skills that you bring to the table. You'd be shocked to see some of the things people say about you and the skills they know you have. So if you hear that and you take that up, definitely put these on your profile. This is your chance to showcase it. You can customize these out. So if you have one where you figure that is your #1 skill and I want every recruiter to know this, put that at the top of the stack. Ask your friends to vouch for you, endorse you for these skills, and really build out your profile. The power of networking is what's really going to drive your profile to the right recruiters. So when we're on here, if you have over 5 skills, we're looking at over 17 times more profile views. So we saw some of those numbers on the profile picture. We want to be able to stack as many of those multipliers as possible. So when recruiters search for us, they know exactly who's there and they have a complete understanding of the skills we're bringing to the table. So definitely be sure to have those highlighted and get a better idea of what skills maybe you have that you maybe don't know you even have. So as we branch off of this one of the biggest tips I can give you in terms of pure networking on LinkedIn, and this goes away a little bit from the branding side and how to market yourself and have that social sell of telling recruiters without ever even speaking to them what you're about. One that I can give you is interest in a company you want to be working at. So going over to this next slide, we're going to highlight why it's important to follow companies on LinkedIn. So for anybody who's been through an interview before in their past, one of the biggest questions and one of the most common questions you're going to come across is, why do you want to work for us? A lot of times, and even in my own experience interviewing people at LinkedIn, people don't have answers to that. It's very rudimentary. It's, oh, it's a great company. Set it apart. Show that you are doing your research. And one of the easiest ways to do that, follow the companies you want to work for. So if, for example, if you want to work at LinkedIn and you've identified that as a major company you want to look at and find open roles, follow us on LinkedIn and stay on top of the news that we're posting. It's a great opportunity for you to stay in touch with the organizations you potentially want to be a part of. And that's also going to be your first shot to stay in front of any openings they put on LinkedIn. So as we're going through it, you can have that passive approach where we're waiting for recruiters to reach out to us, or you can be proactive, follow these companies and connect with the recruiters at those organizations to put our name at the top of the stack. At the end of the day, profile views and driving some of those best practices of having the picture, your summary, and as well as highlighting those skills that you guys all have, definitely have that going forward, and then get creative on the companies that you follow. And you're going to maximize your LinkedIn capabilities there, and you're definitely going to start seeing recruiters reach out to you if you're not seeing that yet. So on the next few slides here, I have some data that's going to be coming up. I just want to preface with this. It is being pulled from our LinkedIn economic graph. For those of you who are not familiar with that, LinkedIn has over 700 million profiles of members that use LinkedIn. So what we can do with that information, we can completely map out who is hiring, what they're hiring for, what skills they're looking for, and what the hiring ratios are in certain areas, certain cities, regions, countries, whatever it may be. We can break this data down extremely finite. So on this next slide, I'm going to highlight for you some of the top employers in Chicago over the past several months here. So on here, you're going to see this is the percent month over month that these companies are growing. Now on here, if you see a company that you have your eyes on, or maybe you already applied for a position there, we know that these accounts or these companies are hiring at an extremely high rate in the Chicagoland area comparative to all the other companies on the Chicagoland area. So if you see somebody here, they're hiring. Definitely engage with them, follow these accounts, try to find the recruiters there if you want to put your name at the top of the stack. One of the biggest things that companies will filter by on LinkedIn to find potential fits for their open roles is to see, are you following the company? It seems kind of comical, but that way they know there's direct interest on both sides. And not only is the company interested in you, but you're also interested in them. So if somebody stands out on here, definitely put your name into that pot, follow the company on LinkedIn, and you'll find some impact going on. The next slide. So again, sticking with the tone of staying in Chicago. So we have the top trending jobs. And this is all based off of members updating their profiles. So if today I updated and I got a job as a software engineer, I would be a part of this data. So right here, we can see the specific jobs that are in demand in the Chicagoland area. And there's a wide variety of these. So an account executive, the amount of times I've spoken to people who have a sales background, a marketing background, maybe they're a finance background, maybe they're on the creative background, it's all encompassing. So if you see these, definitely give it a look, because they are definitely hiring for these roles, because anything jumping over a 1% increase is massive when we're looking at the full data that LinkedIn has for Chicago. So these positions are definitely out there. Just be a little creative with how we're going to get in front of them. So for software engineer, you guys have ever worked on any sort of coding? Definitely put that into those skills, and that's how we're going to get the top of the stack for the companies that are hiring software engineers. Same goes for some of these other ones that we see on here. For instance, recruiters, if you have communication skills, if you've done interviewing for any sort of recruitment at an on-campus org, put that on there. You're definitely going to get looks at for some of these roles that are open if we highlight those skills. So sticking with the theme of skills and things we want to highlight on our profile, we have the top skills that people are actually hiring for in Chicago right now. So if anybody in this call right now feels they have these skills, throw it on your profile. I'm telling you right now, these are the skills people are actively looking for right now and actively hiring for in Chicago. And if you're having a hard time and it's stressful, I know it can be. I've been there as well. I know when I graduated, it was a major headache figuring out what I was going to do. I had no skills highlighted on my profile when I initially graduated. Take some of these skills that you may have and highlight those on your profile, and I can guarantee you we're going to start seeing those responses come up again. At the end of the day, it's not to be perfect. We're trying to get as many profile views as possible from recruiters to get us at the top of the stack. So definitely be creative. Definitely get your thoughts going on how I can brand myself ahead of some of my peers, maybe with similar backgrounds. That's what we want to do here to be able to put us at the top of the stack. So that's pretty much it for my LinkedIn slides. So I'll hand it over to Bridget, and she can get more in depth on some of her topics.
Oh, sorry about that. I think I was on mute. Thanks for a great presentation, Jordan. Hopefully you can all see my screen now. And I saw there were a couple questions in the queue, so I promise we'll get to those and more that you have at the end of the presentation. So Jordan did a great job talking about how to build your brand on LinkedIn. I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about personal brand in general and where it comes up, how to amplify it, and how to really get started with a personal brand statement for that matter. So when does it really come up? So you've all heard the term elevator pitch. Jordan mentioned it. It's that 30 seconds of fame that you get when you're being introduced to a recruiter or a mentor or a potential mentor, or it even comes up in social media when you're on LinkedIn or even on Handshake, for example. It's that sort of question you get and you don't know how to answer half the time. Tell me about yourself. It's such a softball, open-ended question. A lot of people just don't know where to begin. And it's a popular interview question for that matter. A lot of people will ask that first in an interview. What kind of work do you do? When you get that question, it's another opportunity to, again, bring in your personal brand statement. Some of our students, when they're asked, what do you major in? We teach them how to incorporate that question into a fuller elevator pitch. So that they're building in these opportunities with a simple question like, what's your major? It's going to come up time and time again. You might be at a point in your career already where you're looking for a raise and you've got to have a pitch about your brand and who you are ready to compel the person making that decision about you. So it's very important, right? So some of the best brands out there, like Apple, Coca-Cola, their brand statements are very simple and to the point. Apple's is think different. Coca-Cola's open happiness. You can't necessarily get away with a 2-word brand statement as an individual looking for a position. However, I think the point here is you do want to keep it short and sweet. Anything that's too long and rambling, you're going to lose the person's attention, especially on social media. So the idea is to get as concise as possible, but still, with the chance to say enough about yourself. The test that I always use is, after you've given your elevator pitch to a recruiter or someone you're trying to impress, do they have a follow-up question for you? If they do, you've compelled them with your elevator pitch. You've done a good job. If they just kind of say, oh, and walk away, that's a different message. And then you might want to work on it a little bit. So the personal brand statement is your slogan. It's your elevator pitch. It's who you are, right? I was on a Google presentation. I was listening into a Google branding presentation a couple weeks ago. If any of you were on it, they talked a little bit about some of these ideas. Where do you start? It's hard to know where to start. And what you want to start with is your career passion. Thinking about, what drove you to major in what you majored in. If you're working in the field now that you want to be in, what brought you into that field? What is it you love? I wonder what Jordan loves about LinkedIn. He might not have known that he was going to work in LinkedIn as a senior at Loyola, but there's something that drove him to that company. There's something that drove him into the position that he's in. And I'm guessing he's got a great statement on his LinkedIn profile that talks a little bit about that. I grabbed a statement on LinkedIn, a profile on LinkedIn by a fellow named Bruce Lamb. I just thought he did a really nice job speaking about who he is. And even in that short, bolded piece where it says, senior recruiter at SHPO, I spark joy in recruiting and enable candidates to be successful. That's a great, quick little tidbit that is compelling, right? He uses great words like spark joy. He seems warm and fun. He's got, this great landscape in the background. It shows he's kind of a sports fan, tells you a little bit about himself. He's got some great logos about who he is, and his introduction, it might be a little lengthy, but that's okay to do on a LinkedIn profile. There are other platforms where you might not want to be quite as wordy, but it's perfectly fine on a LinkedIn profile. In fact, it gives the recruiter a little bit more to dig in on. So you want to start with, what led you to your career? What do you love about it? And then you want to add a couple of personal strengths, and that brings in the skills that Jordan was talking about. You can see in Bruce's second paragraph, he gets right into his skills. So he's got some great keywords like data analytics, strategic sourcing, and those are all great keywords in the human resources world. So I love the idea of going to some other profiles of people that are in the fields that you want to be in and seeing how they talk about themselves and borrowing some of that language, because every field has their own lingo. I was in public relations for a very long part of my career, and public relations has its own lingo. So if I were trying to help somebody get into that field, I would be perusing various PR profiles and sharing some of those keywords with them, right? And then you want to add the color. So once you've got that little statement going, now it's time to make it a little bit more fun. Sometimes when you're first drafting these, they can feel a little bit, I don't know, like you're using too much corporate speak sometimes is the problem. So what you want to do is practice saying it out loud and practice saying it to somebody else. Find a trusted friend, find a mentor, and practice and make adjustments. It's not going to be perfect the first time you roll it out, right? Okay. So share a draft with a trusted friend, even a professor. I think, Jordan mentioned that. If you had a professor that you had a great relationship with while you were at Loyola, that's a great person to run it by. Some of you might be involved in some of our mentoring platforms. LU Connect is one of them. You can get to that from the luc.edu/career website if you've never done that, or if you're interested in a mentor to roll stuff like this off of. That's open and free to all of you. And then I believe the Clemens School of Business folks that are on the call can try Loyola Mentors, which is another career platform available. And then what you want to do once you have that statement sort of ready to get tested is ask those folks, ask those mentors, ask those friends, those trusted folks, does this statement match what you perceive of me? Like, so that's the thing, right? When they read it, does it make them think of you? And once you have that match, you're good to go. Okay. So, and then once you've got that nailed down, this is the fun part, right? This is the part where you get to amplify it. This is where you post it on LinkedIn with a great new photo that you took. This is where you add it to your Handshake profile. If you're not using Handshake, I would suggest that you get going on it. It's free to all alumni. It's got thousands of recruiters on it. And we've got virtual fairs happening all this month, so you're welcome to join those as alumni. And then you also want to make sure it's on all those other social media platforms that you don't always think about as being professional. I mean, even the Facebooks out there and the Twitters out there are ways that you can use it to brand yourself. Check out what you've got on your Twitter profile. What have you listed? What have you said about yourself? It's all there, and recruiters are going to be looking at the full picture of you. So you want to make sure that all those different channels match up, and that they all speak to who you are. So I think I'm going to stop there. And I know one more thing. Some of the resources I mentioned are links right here. So we have a lot about personal brand on the luc.edu career website. So that's the first URL there. And then the Handshake student blog talks a lot about how to get started with your elevator pitch. So that's the link to get you started there. And that's my email if you have any questions about anything that I talked about. Over to you, Jeremiah.
I was on mute that time.
You did what I did, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for sharing that information. I found that incredibly helpful. Right now, we will actually transition to the Q&A section of the presentation. I know some of you have already submitted a few questions, so we will definitely get to those. If while we're talking, you come up with additional questions, feel free to throw those in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, and we will get to them as we can. So the first question that I wanted to tackle, going back to your discussion, Jordan, on those skills, once you've listed those skills, how important are endorsements? And is there a polite way to get people to endorse you for skills?
Yeah, perfect question there. So with endorsements, the biggest thing there, that's essentially telling recruiters that 20 of your colleagues, if you got 20 endorsements, 20 of your colleagues believe that this is a very strong skill that you have. So it's essentially reinforcing to the recruiter viewing your profile that you do in fact have that skill because people are vouching for you, that you do possess it. So in terms of a polite way to go about doing so, if somebody tells you that you have that skill, I would ask them. Like it's going to feel kind of weird the first few times you do it, but biggest advice I can give you is you just have to ask. in terms of a professional way to go about doing so, one of the ways I did that, I actually asked my professors, I said, hey, I sent an email out to about, I want to say 10 or 15 of them when I first graduated. I asked them if they could give me a professional review on if they think I have these skills. And if not, could we have a conversation about it and maybe where I could address those gaps to get that skill. So it's a great opportunity for you there, not only to reinforce, do I have this skill, but what can I do to get this skill? So a pretty solid way to not only network as well, but make sure you see those skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And then kind of continuing down this LinkedIn line, when connecting with people, should you only be connecting with people within your field, or should you look to broaden your horizons and connect outside of the field that you're currently working, or even fields that you might not be looking to get into in the future?
Great question. So I actually have this one come up a lot. I would support sales organizations specifically in helping their team's brand to sell. So on this front, when it comes to connection requests, by all means, if you think that network connection, so for instance, if you wanted to connect with me, if I'm not directly in your industry, but you think I can provide insights elsewhere, definitely connect with me. So that goes for anybody. The one recommendation I can make though with the connection, that it'll bring up a little section where you can send a message. 100% always include a message and tell somebody why you're connecting with them. If you're just sending out sporadic connection requests to people that maybe aren't in your industry, they're going to think that same area too, where it's like, why is somebody reaching out to me from an industry I'm not even a part of? Include those notes and explain why. So if you think it could be beneficial, definitely do it. If it's somebody you heard speak at a seminar, by all means connect with them, let them know, and you just want to stay on top of what they're doing in their career. Those are all different things you can do on LinkedIn. So not all of it is specifically to finding a job. It's also maintaining those relationships so things can pop up in the future.
Excellent. So this one, to change pace a little bit, we are much more than just the work that we do. We do a lot of things with our friends, with some of us hold volunteer positions. How do we bring those non-professional experiences into the job search, whether that's creating a personal brand or putting that on a profile? What type of experiences can we bring into that, and how do we bring those into the conversations when trying to sell ourselves to potential employers?
Yeah, another fantastic question. So volunteer experience, if we're looking for something along those lines, if we work for nonprofits, you can highlight that in volunteer experience. But if you worked directly at a nonprofit, for example, or you're on a board at Loyola in an undergrad program, you did something outside of this, outside of Loyola, maybe you supported something back at your high school, definitely put those on your profile under your job history as things you were doing. If it was an actual position, definitely highlight in your job history. Recruiters will look at that. So not everything needs to be I worked at a corporate job and highlight those on there. If you had a certain position, definitely put it on there. Mine's obviously a little bit different as I progressed through my career, but when I initially graduated, I didn't do much. I worked as one of the barbacks at Ireland's in the student union. And then I worked at Nordstrom Rack. So I highlighted those on there still because there are skills you're going to have at those positions. So definitely highlight it and use that experience to highlight the skills you have and what you've learned. So definitely include everything on there. Use your discretion. If you have volunteer experience that you felt like, I can't really speak too much in depth about it, maybe leave those ones off. But if you know for a fact you had a direct impact on an organization in your work, did something positive, definitely highlight those on your profile.
That's great. And I'll just add a little bit to that. Some of you may have done research projects while you're at Loyola, or even been involved in some of the what we call micro internships through our partnership with Parker Dewey. And those are, even that project work, if it was a 3-month project, a 1-month project, those are skills that you gained or honed. So you definitely want to include that work. Don't leave it off because you only did it for a month or two. It's important work to highlight.
Absolutely. So this one kind of comes in at the length of period you were employed, or you participated in something that was supposed to be potentially 2 years, but you left early. How do you work with employers in that conversation to kind of bridge that gap? Maybe it's a gap in employment, or maybe you had to leave a program early. How do you bridge that conversation and bring that into your personal brand, showing that you will be committed to this new experience?
I can say one thing to that. I think it varies by situation, but I think nowadays it's more common that people aren't staying at a job for 10 plus years. I think the average amount of time that anyone spends is, I want to say it's like maybe 2 years, 2 or 3 years right now. That's like the average. So I wouldn't worry so much about that. I just think you have to be prepared. You have to have an answer prepared. So, when that question does come up, that would be something you could work with one of our career advisors or career coaches on based on, your unique situation. But there is definitely always a way to answer that question in a way that doesn't attract more questions. So your goal is to get off that question and transition to what is so great about you. That's always your goal in an interview, right? Whatever the question is, it's got to come back to how great you are.
Absolutely. And then Jordan, kind of just touching on the data that you had provided, is there a way for a general LinkedIn user, or Bridget, in your experience as students and alumni are looking for positions, is there a way that people can see what is trending, what companies are hiring the most, or what positions or fields are the most lucrative to get into?
Yeah, definitely. Those are all things that you can actually filter by on LinkedIn as you're searching for new roles. So one of the biggest things I can give you in terms of recommendations of getting the profile set up for recruiters, you go into your settings, there's actually going to be a section where it's a little slider bar. If you flag that to on, recruiters will reach out to you. So that's 100% an indicator that you are open to new roles. So when it comes to driving that, definitely have that on there. On everything else regarding the settings, you can actually set that up for recommended jobs. So if you're looking for a certain role that's top of mind for you, for instance, mine's all set up for sales. So anything with the sales background, branding, marketing, that's top of mind for me. So you can alter all of those and have it directly feed you those recommendations of what's open. When it comes to a specific company and are they hiring, that's where it's going to be important to follow them on LinkedIn, because when we click onto their company page, we're going to actually see their hiring and their growth numbers. So if we have a marketing background, for example, LinkedIn data will break that down when you're on a company page to say 6% growth over the last year or 6 months, depending on how you filter it out for a certain role or industry. So to answer your question, yes, you would be able to do that on LinkedIn and feed the jobs to you. Now, in terms of looking at that data that I was showing you, if you just Google search LinkedIn economic graph, that's all public data. And you can filter that out for everything. So if you're leaving Chicago after graduation, or say you already left Chicago and we're back in LA, New York, Austin, whatever it may be, we can highlight all those locations as well. So if you're looking specific to where you're at, relocating, where you currently live, we can do that as well.
Yeah, LinkedIn data is so good that we actually use it for some of our career outcomes reporting. And I'll just say, while the data in Handshake is different, you can do some of the same things. If you have a Handshake account, you can see which jobs are trending, which employers are trending. You can follow various employers. You're not going to see the huge amount of data that, is just not as big as LinkedIn. But if you're on both platforms, and I do suggest you use both platforms, make sure you're taking advantage of those opportunities. Make your profile public. Follow the employers that you're interested in. You can do that on Handshake as well.
And Bridget, really quick, can you discuss how alumni can get access to Handshake? I don't know if you've covered that already, but if you have, touch on it again, just to make sure that our alumni know that they have that resource.
Yeah, so if you go to luc.edu/career, you'll see a box to the right of the page that says Handshake. You can get to Handshake in various ways. You type it into the search feature on the LUC website, click on the Handshake link, set up try to create an account. You can use an LUC email. It would be great. If you don't have an LUC email, you don't have to use it. You just need to give us a couple days once you've created your account to check against Locus to make sure we know that you're a graduate from Loyola. So usually it just takes a couple business days, and then we'll approve it, and you'll get an email saying you're approved.
Excellent. And, kind of continuing this line of looking for a job, someone came in with a really good question, is if you put on your LinkedIn profile that you're actively looking or you're surfing the job websites, how do you bridge that conversation with your current employer, and can they see it if it's on your LinkedIn profile?
Great question. So if you guys write it on your profile, you definitely will see that come up where it's people are actively searching for their next role, next opportunity, next play. Those are all different terminology I've seen people include in their header. Now, if you include that and your manager or your current employer goes to your profile, they'll be able to see that because that's public. But that feature of opening it up, your profile, so recruiters can search for you and saying, yes, I'm open to new opportunities, we actually hide that algorithm from your current employer. So for instance, with me at LinkedIn, I always leave mine open. I definitely would recommend keeping it always on, regardless if you're super happy. Because if I get reached out to for a VP role at a startup coming up, I'm definitely going to probably entertain that conversation. So I would recommend leaving it on. But if you're a little concerned about will my manager see it, I would make sure that you have your job history up to date. So your current employer is your current job on LinkedIn. And that will eliminate that concern of, can they know if I have that tag turned on? They won't know. Only way they're going to know is if you specifically write it on your profile.
Excellent. And speaking of current positions, how much information should you put in your, basically in your LinkedIn resume, or Bridget, when building a resume, how many bullet points and how much should you highlight about what you did in each position?
I mean, for a resume, it's always ideal to keep it to one page because people just don't have the time. There are certain fields where if you're trying to become an academic, you can have a 4 or 5 page CV. But for the most part, I think, depending on how long you've been at the company and the type of experience you've had, usually 4 to 5 bullets per position will pretty much do it. I think what's more important is what's in those bullet points. Did you include quantitative and qualitative information and skills and what you accomplished, and by what percentage points you made, so that's what's critical to having a good resume.
Excellent. And most recently, we got a question on what's the best way to communicate that you're willing or not willing to relocate for a position, and particularly in the age of COVID, when a lot of things are moving online and work from homes. How do you communicate with recruiters or potential employers your willingness to come into the office or work remotely?
Yeah, on LinkedIn, that's something that's pretty straightforward. So you can obviously mark that down that you're not willing to relocate within your settings. So you would be able to do that on LinkedIn. When it comes to recruiters reaching out to you, most of the time, or at least what we recommend to the clients that we support and when they use LinkedIn to find their openings and potential new hires, we always recommend that they're completely upfront about relocation affiliated with a certain position that they're reaching out to you for. So if somebody reaches out to you, they should be upfront with you anyway as a recruiter that you potentially have to relocate, or what the situation would be if you have to go in an office, work from home. So we always recommend our clients to do that when they reach out to you as the user. But you would actually be able to alter that in your settings as well to be able to highlight that, no, I'm not interested in relocation.
Absolutely. Bridget, I wanted to circle back to something that you had said earlier. Right now, you said that the average time that someone stays at a job is about 2 years. And particularly as young professionals graduate college, they may not know exactly what field they're looking to go into, or they may have an idea and they get in, they realize that that's not what they wanted to do. In navigating that, how do you continue to build your personal and professional brand while you're still trying to figure out what it is that you want to do?
So you're talking about the person who's right out of college?
Or probably 2 to 3 years. They've had some experience, but they realize that they maybe didn't like sales and want to go into academia or
Yeah.
something along those lines.
Yeah, I think there are some really great points. So I think that's a really great time of life, actually, and I think most people go through this where you enter this job, and sometimes it's even what you think is your dream job, and you get a year into it and you're like, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be at all. It's actually kind of the opposite of what I thought it was going to be. And so you get a lot smarter, right, as you start to gain more experience. And maybe if you're at a bigger company, you get exposure to some other departments and seeing what they do and how they operate. And so what I've seen a lot of people do successfully is navigate from one area of that company into another area of the company through a lot of great networking and a lot of building of skills. And, there's so many different ways you can build your skills, whether it's, analytical skills that you're taking coursework, online courses on analytics. There's all kinds of free ways to do that. Or if it's something that you can do in a volunteer way, or as or you find a mentor who's in that field who helps you join some professional organizations in that space, and sort of learn from there. So there's lots of different ways to do that, but it is going to be about, taking the skills that you have that are actually transferable, like you're a good communicator, you're a good writer. Some of those skills are very transferable to anything, to honing and fine tuning the skills that you still need to work on. Jordan mentioned one of the things he did was he reached out to professors and said, okay, do I have these skills? For the ones that I don't have, what do you suggest I do? And that's a great thing to do at that stage of life, to reach out to the people that you trust, sort of your circle of trust, and let them help you. You should never feel like you're doing this all by yourself. There are so many people that want to help. So I just think that part of the hardest part about this whole process is letting your guard down and asking for that help and not being afraid to ask for it.
Absolutely. As we just had another question come in along those same lines, is in that when you're looking to change careers, how do you highlight previous experience that may not be relevant? Do you still include that on your resume? And if so, when it's brought up, how do you bridge that conversation?
Yeah, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but it really is about the transferable skills, and you have to be able to communicate why and how you feel they are transferable to the other field. So it's a lot of practicing. This is what you can do with a career coach or a career advisor. Everyone at Loyola has unlimited access the rest of their lives to career services. You practice how to answer those questions, because I guarantee you most of the people that graduated from Loyola and have been working 1 or 2 years have a lot of skills they don't even realize they have. Jordan talks a lot about customer service skills. A lot of people kind of snub their nose at that because they think that sounds whatever. But customer service skills are critical to every position, all the way up the food chain to the C-suite. So it's more a matter of how you talk about yourself and knowing what your skills are and understanding how those skills actually will transfer to the next thing for you. So you probably already have most of those skills. It's just a matter of being able to speak to it in an eloquent way.
Kind of to build off of that, to give you guys a real world example, one of my coworkers at LinkedIn who actually started with me on the same day, we go through and we do introductions, and it's basically what's one thing that's not in your LinkedIn profile. And it's essentially our way to give an elevator pitch on our day one, so all of our new colleagues know exactly who we are and have a better idea in our personal life. So everyone's going through the chain, and the girl directly to my right goes, oh, I actually was an Olympic bobsledder for Team USA in the Olympics. So somebody laughs and goes, oh, what was the transferable skill you have to get into a position in sales? And she straight up goes, I'm coachable. She's like, there's nothing you can tell me that I'm not coachable. She's like, I'm an Olympic athlete for Team USA. And she's like, I know for a fact I have this skill. So that's how confident you guys have to be with those skills. You may not even know, like Bridget said, that it's a strong skill. I hear it all the time in my conversations. Oh, well, I worked in a restaurant and I was a waiter for a few years. Fantastic. You probably have amazing customer service. I've seen horrible treatment of waiters in the past. I'm sure we all have. You guys have it if you've had a position like that. So definitely think about that and get very granular and use that and be strong when you talk about it. That's exactly what she did. And I don't have any doubts in my mind that she's coachable being an Olympic athlete.
Great example.
Yeah, absolutely. I worked at a movie theater for 4 years, and the amount of people that wanted more butter on their popcorn, and that's just helped me answer the phone day in and day out. So it looks like we are just about out of time. So I wanted to say thank you to everyone that joined us this evening, and extend a very special thank you to Bridget and Jordan for taking the time out of their day and putting these presentations together. I think that, all of the information was excellent. Just a reminder, a recording of this session will be provided in the post-event email that should go out in the next couple of days. All of the information that we touched on in the presentation will be in there. And I would like to invite everyone to join us for the remaining Adulting 101 series. Our next presentation Connecting the Human Resources Dots for Professionals, is 2 weeks from today. That's Wednesday, September 16th at 5:30 p.m. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I can put you in contact with Bridget and Jordan. As I mentioned, Bridget works at the Loyola Career Services office, and all of those resources are available to everyone as Loyola alumni. So if it's in 2 months or 60 years, feel free to come in, and we would love to see you. Thank you, everyone, and go Ramblers.
Thank you.